Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. My name is Andy Frisky. I'm a senior dream curator here at DreamBank, and on behalf of my team and everyone else associated with DreamBank, we're so thrilled to have you with us here today. As we get started here and settled in, I recommend popping in the chat if you're comfortable to do so, where you're tuning into. It's always fascinating just to see where people are joining from today. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar, I would love to take just a few moments and introduce you to DreamBank. So here at American Family Insurance, we believe that communities are stronger and the future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. And that's why DreamBank was created over 10 years ago. It's an inspirational community destination and digital experience that is dedicated to dreamers everywhere. Our offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, overcome obstacles, and to stay motivated. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Galen and BJ, and they're going to discuss bridging the gap between neurodiverse students and meaningful employment opportunities to celebrate Autism Acceptance Month here this April. So without further ado, Galen, BJ, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, I'm Galen Metz. I'll lead off here. First of all, my background, I'm a retired healthcare chief information officer, most recently with Group Health Cooperative of Madison. And I'm also an author of books like The Holistic CIO, Secrets of Healthcare IT Revealed and Innovate Like Magic, plus co-author of two of the books we'll be referencing today. Most recently, I was named Executive Director of the Employability Project. So with that, I'm thrilled to be here with you, and I'll turn things over to BJ.
Hi, I'm BJ Pfeiffer. I own Enterprise Solutions Technology Group, and I am the founder of the Employability Project. And I'm absolutely thrilled that Galen accepted to be the director. We've been as a group for quite a long time. The last 5 years, we've been focusing on neurodiverse. A little bit of background. We started out many years ago on a grant program to help people with disabilities enter the workforce for IT specifically. And we had an amazing experience with that. And when we were finished with that, the group said, okay, we're good at this now. What should we do? So we formed the 501c3. And that's kind of how our journey went from being a grant program to the nonprofit that we are today. Thank you all for joining us today. I think somebody's muted here. There we go.
Okay. So BJ, would you like me to go through our agenda for today?
Sure, if you'd like to, go right ahead.
Okay. We'll start with this quote, and I think this speaks to the spirit of the Employability Project, that we believe that differences like autism are things that just need help and accommodation, not something to be cured. And I think that speaks to our mission and our role in trying to link and bridge this gap that we see with neurodiverse students and employers. There. Our agenda for today, BJ, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the Employability Project itself. I'll cover the flight plan for students, and then I'll talk also about guidance for employers dealing with neurodiverse employees or interns.
Okay. The Employability Project really seeks to help people with disabilities find the work that they want to work in. So often we hear, people are suggested by, family and friends, oh, you'd be really good at this. But, we take a lot of time to go through and work with people to find out, what do you want to be when you were 10 years old? Are you still interested in that route? And we've come to the conclusion that when people can find what they really want to do, they stick it out. I mean, they can build careers on that. We have a process that we go through, basically just so that we can find top 3 interests, and then we go from there. We have a group of people that have been with us from education, business, government, subject matter experts that sit on our board and our advisory committees, so that we can help connect, everybody that we work with within our network to find meaningful opportunities. We primarily try to find internships so that people can try these things out, because it's just as important to know what you don't want to do as what you do want to do. We've developed partnerships with Madison College. We've taught workshops there and helped students move forward with their career exploration. And we also work with Mansfield Hall, which is a campus. It's downtown Madison, and it basically helps people with neurodiversities to pursue like independence. They're enrolled in all the colleges in the area, and they live in the dorm at Mansfield Hall. That's the name. And we've had success working with them to find them different types of situations in every kind of field you can imagine. It's been a labor of love for all of us, and it's always very interesting, and we love working with the students.
Yeah, I could pick it up from here, I guess. What we see is a unique win-win-win opportunity. For the students, they are able to explore the career of their dreams. It's a good learning experience to actually see what it's like to actually do the job that they're thinking of. And it strengthens their resume. So good deal for the students. For the employer gets extra help through the internships that we provide. We require minimal paperwork. And it's also enriching the community, enabling these students to join the workforce. So the community empowers individuals with disabilities, and it expands the local talent pool. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. We have 2 books. The one on your left is Preparing for the Career of Your Dreams, Soaring to New Heights, Preparing for the Career of Your Dreams, written and designed for the student. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And Soaring to New Heights for Employers, that book was written as a guide for the employer. Both of these books are available on Amazon, and a shameless plug, they're both on sale today. So they're both around about $10 each. And we're drawing a lot of material that we'll cover today from these 2 books. Here's our contact information. First, the website. And if you want to ask questions of us, pursue something after this session, feel free to use this email address, theemployabilityproject.org. Now, we're going to talk about advice and recommendations, tips for the students and also for the employers. I wanted to point out that this information was gathered from our 15 years of experience with the Employability Project, feedback from the students and the employers that we work with. And it's also derived from research from organizations that deal in neurodiversity. So we've collected all this information for you today. And we'll start by talking about the students. Who are they? First of all, we talked about neurodiversity. The ones we work with are primarily autistic, currently in college. Our partners pre-qualify them for our program. So partners like Mansfield Hall that BJ mentioned. And the most important point here is that this is student-driven. Students have various career aspirations, whether it's IT, working in a veterinary hospital, entering the hospitality industry, becoming a writer. It's student-driven. What the student wants to do with their career we try to provide the preparation and internships to help them in that field. So how do we go about doing this? What's the process? Here is our student flight plan, we call it. And I'll step through these real briefly, and then I'll go into 4 of them in more detail. Starts with taking charge at the very bottom. Students basically control their own destiny. That's the point of this first module. So controlling their own destiny, being able to reach the goals that they've set for themselves. Career exploration is all about finding the right career field. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we go about doing that. Organizational skills. So where do you begin and what information needs to be tracked? We'll cover that in this section. The search. This is a detailed session or section that talks about applications, applying for jobs, cover letters, and resumes. So we try to encourage the students to find their differentiating factors, as I call them. Why should an employer hire that student versus others that may be submitting their resume? So that's the search. I'll talk more about that. Interviewing, preparing for an interview and making it as successful as possible. Trying to present the best version of yourself in an interview. Networking, professional networking. The idea here is that everyone is a potential connector to someone that you might need to build your career. It's all about building your own network. Navigating social media is about using social media as a positive thing in pursuing your career. And I'll talk quite a bit about internships and coaching. Internships really are an exposure to the career that you've chosen. It shows you the skills that you'll need. It gives you a real world experience doing that job. The career coach helps the student set goals and guide the student through this process. So that's our flight plan. And that's the basis of the first book that I mentioned, which was for the student. Let's talk a little bit about 4 of those steps in the flight plan. We'll begin with career direction, then talk about resume, interview, and internships. Stephen Covey, author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, has one of those, begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. That's what we're doing with the students. We're trying to help them visualize their career, and then we help them build a path to getting there. All about self-determination, that they control their destiny. And we use a tool called the Career Cluster Interest Survey. This is a very well-established survey. It asks the student lots of questions and then guides them to careers that they might want to explore, given those skills. The career categories, or there are 16 of them, include things like finance, IT, hospitality, a number of them. So 16 of those career categories. And I think what we're looking for here is this balance between interests. What is the student interested in doing? What are their skills and opportunities in the business world to pursue those? So questions lead to career guidance. We also occasionally do informational interviews. So we will have a student interview and a potential employer in that career field to gain more insight. And in the past, occasionally that informational interview has turned into an internship. So BJ, maybe you could tell us about Julian's experience with this career direction aspect.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite stories. We had a young man go into an IT department for an internship because he thought he wanted to be a computer programmer. And fortunately for him, he wasn't so shy that he didn't go to the manager that was kind of guiding him through to say, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be like. And so that manager took him through all the different areas of IT, and he got to spend a little bit of time in each of those to see if there are other areas of interest. And he did find another interest. He loved building them and putting computers together. And he was thrilled about that because he would never have had the opportunity otherwise to figure that out. And so had he, it wasn't that he didn't have the aptitude to be a programmer, he just didn't prefer it. So we have him come back and talk to our new students for every summer for the internships that we start at Mansfield Hall, because you can tell someone it's just as important to know what you don't want to do. But I think they're always searching for what they do want to do and discount the importance of that until they hear these stories.
Very good. Thanks. Yeah, I think that's a really important point, that sometimes these internships not only tell you what you do want to do, it reinforces that idea, but might also point out that, gee, this isn't the career that I want to pursue. And that's okay. That's still a successful internship. Next, we'll talk about the resume. And I'll start with just having a professional email address. These are things to include. Jeff Close from the Employability Project, I'll steal one of his stories. He said one of the emails that he saw on a resume was monkeybutt56@gmail.com. And he wasn't sure whether it was that email that bothered him or that there were 56 other monkey butts out there. So have a professional email address to use with the resume. You want this to look professional. Oh, you can list your education, experience. We want to really enforce that all of the things that you've done, whether it's part-time jobs, volunteering, or even school activity, these all contribute to your experience. Might be building teamwork, for example. So we want to make sure that those points come out in the resume. It's good to have references lined up. You don't necessarily have to list them on the resume, but it's good to have them ready. So that's what should be included in the resume. And then these are some tips. At this stage of the student's career, 1 to 2 pages feels about right. And it should be easy to read. Think about the HR person or the hiring manager having to look through a number of resumes. You want yours to be easy to read. Not big, thick paragraphs of text that they have to wade through, but bullet points, headings like experience and education, headings in bold, and action verbs, not just that you were responsible for this job, but that you actually accomplished something, and it's good to list those accomplishments here. So easy to read. We like to also encourage linking it to a job description. If you're applying for a specific job, use phrases from the job description in your resume, and then reinforce how you have those skills. Maybe one of the most important points about the resume for these students and for a lot of us is that we might not be accustomed to having to sell ourselves. This is really an opportunity to show how you compete with others that are also submitting a resume. So sell yourself. Proofread. Don't just proofread it yourself, but have others proofread it as well. In my 40 years of reviewing resumes, I think I recall hiring one person that had a spelling error in their resume. So make sure the grammar and spelling are correct, that you put the time and effort into doing a good job with your resume. So proofreading is important. Should mention that the one person that was hired, I was outvoted by several other people. That's the reason behind that.
English
That's
teachers everywhere, thank you.
Yes. Let's talk about the interview. You want to present the best version of yourself. So be authentic. Be authentic. And just like the Boy Scouts, be prepared. You want to prepare answering questions that interviewers might ask. And our book has lots of those kinds of sample questions. Might be like, what's your proudest achievement? Or what skills do you bring? So be prepared to answer those very typical interviewer questions. And the thing I like to encourage is figure out the answer to why hire me? Is it my skill set? Is my experience? What is it that differentiates me from others? So be prepared to answer these questions. And then not only answer questions, but also be prepared to ask questions. So questions might be, what qualities do I need to be successful in this job? Or where do you see the company going in 5 years? So it's good to not only answer questions, but to explore. And I like the personal note, personal touch of having a thank you note at the end. So send them after your interview, send a thank you note to the person interviewing you. I think you express your interest in your job, and it may be that not all of the applicants sent a thank you note, so you might stand out just for that reason alone. So we encourage that as well. Let's talk about the internships. Why internship? Why do we think that's so important? And these stats are pretty significant. 60% of students in college graduating classes have completed an internship or a co-op during their time in college. So 60% have an internship. So it's a simple question of, do you want to be in the 60% that have that capability or that quality? Or do you want to be in the 40% that don't? So again, this is a competition. Getting jobs is a competition. And you want to leverage all of these factors that you can to give yourself the best shot. Another quote, all these are from National Association of Colleges and Employers. Students graduating with internship experiences are more likely to find employment. So again, play the odds. Internships help. So we see these advantages. You get to experience the real job environment. As BJ said, sometimes you find out what you really don't want to do, or it reinforces that your career choice is on target. Also, the internship gives you a chance to expand your professional network. Now you know people in that line of work, and you can leverage that network. And internships strengthen your resume. Again, it's a competition. This is Dr. Perry LaRocque, who is the founder of Mansfield Hall. This is one of his quotes. This is one of the most important experiences in college. It builds a track record. So he encourages every student to take this opportunity seriously and give it your best shot. All about the internships. We do have some student feedback. People have gone through this program, a wonderful experience, solidified my interest in the field, and would definitely recommend. So very positive student feedback from having gone through the program. Next, I'm going to transition, back one slide, transition to the employer. And this is guidance for an employer in dealing with neurodiverse employees or interns. Okay, who are these employers? First of all, they support the idea of neurodiversity. And as you'll see in the next slide, they represent various industries, various sizes. And the network of employers really has been created, built, and grown by the Employability Project over time. So who are some of these employers? Okay, these are a lot of names and symbols you'll probably recognize. I'll start with American Family Insurance. I had to put them first because they're hosting us today, so thank you for that. But they've taken on interns with us in the past. Names like Exact Sciences and Vivo Sciences, but also One City Schools or Westtown Veterinary Center. Shows the diversity of the different kinds of employers and the different kinds of internships we've had. UW Health, Group Health, where I worked for many years, and the Mallards, and down in the corner, Filament Games, a gaming company in Madison. So lots of different employers have worked with us, and I think it again represents just the very diverse kinds of businesses that partner with us. So from a business standpoint, why would a business want to do this? What are the benefits of having neurodiverse interns or employees? I'll talk about these four. Untapped resource, productivity, you can get better ideas, and it can positively impact consumer attitudes. This is maybe the most shocking and staggering stat, that unemployment and underemployment can run as high as 80%. So neurodiversity is an untapped resource. This is a fairly recent survey. At the same time, I was watching CBS Sunday Morning, and there are 2 million fewer workers in the US labor force now than there were before the pandemic. So a lot of retirements. So available workers, that resource is dwindling, and we have an untapped resource with these neurodiverse students. I have some quotes from several large companies. SAP is a software company, JP Morgan Financial, and Walgreens. And these are experiences and quotes that they provided as a result of their neurodiversity programs. SAP said these employees were good at just about every role. So they're not necessarily something that have to be pigeonholed in a very narrow job description. They're good at just about everything. JP Morgan found that productivity was up 92% more than with other employees. And Walgreens said the costs were lower because of lower absenteeism and lower workman's comp. And why was that? Very simply, that they followed the rules. So these are companies that have chosen to bring this talent in. Neurodiverse candidates can also be a source of better ideas. E&Y used to be Ernst & Young, it's now E&Y, talks about inclusive organizations encourage truly innovative thinking. And we have an example with the Employability Project, a guy named Thomas who had a better idea. BJ?
Yes, we had Thomas go out to a biotech company. I'm not sure if I should name it or not, so maybe I won't, but it's very large. And Thomas went in They did everything right from the beginning with Thomas. They took him around, showed them what they did, and let him decide what area he might like to explore. So he decided to go into their engineering area, and he was working on a project that they gave him to do. And he went to his mentor in the company and said, had you ever thought about doing this way? And so he shows him what he came up with. And the entire department was so impressed, they said, let's do it that way from now on. So he basically came in, college student, looked at what they were doing and just saw a new way to do it that was more efficient. So we were extremely proud of him, and really proud of the client also for taking the time to listen.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's a great idea of a neurodiverse intern bringing a better idea. So it's a way of encouraging more different thoughts on how to do things. Let's talk next about consumer attitudes. A couple of stats here from Autism Speaks. Companies who hire people with disabilities are viewed more favorably by 92% of Americans. So that's obviously portraying your organization in a very positive light. 87% of consumers would prefer to give their business to those companies. And 5% would even switch. So having a neurodiversity program can actually help your brand. So those are some of the reasons why employers should have a neurodiversity program. And maybe the other thing that we didn't mention is it's just the right thing to do. So we should, I think, encourage it for that reason as well. So those are reasons why. Now let's talk about how. How do you work with neurodiverse employees? So here's some guidance, and these tips come from our second book. And we'll talk about these 5 areas: the interview process, onboarding, workplace and staff readiness, and then communication. Okay, we'll begin with the interview. I'll make this bold comment that I think a lot of neurodiverse applicants are screened out in the interview process, maybe unintentionally. Could be that the location is noisy, or there's bright lights, or there's distractions. Those are things that may affect someone with autism. So the location may put that person at a disadvantage. Also that because of social skills, maybe a delay in answering questions while processing the question, or maybe the eye contact isn't what someone would like in an interview because they're different. Sometimes these social aspects can screen someone out where really we should be focusing on the job skills. What does the job require? And I would also suggest direct and open-ended questions, like, very direct, what skills do you bring? Some of you may remember Barbara Walters would ask questions like, what tree would you be? That's a little too abstract. I think people with autism would struggle with those kinds of abstract questions. So ask direct, closed-ended questions. And this is a good opportunity to kind of talk about accommodations. I would ask something like, what would make you stressed in a job? So there are sort of indirect ways of getting at what accommodations might be helpful. And I think what we found is accommodations might not be this big, elaborate, expensive thing. It might be as simple as allowing the intern to wear noise-canceling headphones. So again, all of these things are trying to get the best representation of the applicant, enabling them to make the best representation of themselves. Okay, bringing them into the organization. We want to talk about the organization. Why does your organization exist? What kind of customers do you serve? Do you have various locations? How many employees do you have? And I would even go into key business objectives. What are some of the key things you're trying to accomplish? In my business career, I put together a one-page document that highlighted the why of the organization and talked about locations and key business objectives that could be shared. And I found that a very successful document to use. And I would think that would be a good document to use in onboarding as well. The workplace. These are basic things like, where's the lunchroom? Where are the restrooms? Where is my workspace? So introducing the applicant, or now it's the intern, to the organization and its layout, its physical layout. Talk about job expectations. What are the responsibilities? And be specific about hours or deadlines. I would also include social expectations. What's the appropriate attire for this organization? And be specific. Also, staff meetings, is that a requirement? Some of the social expectations of the organization. So the onboarding process brings somebody in and introduces them to these aspects of the organization. Let's talk about readiness of the workplace. If there are accommodations that are needed, deal with those. The Americans with Disabilities Act talks about requiring reasonable accommodations. Those might be things like providing breaks or a quiet workplace. I would also have you review your policies and procedures to make sure they're appropriate for someone with autism, let's say. So I'll use a phrase that Walgreens used: consistent in objective, flexible in means. So your policies and procedures should have a consistent direction. But I think with autism, you may have some flexibility with how you actually accommodate that. So ready the workplace. Next, we want to talk about staff readiness. Are you, your team, other employees ready for neurodiversity? So I would encourage an inclusive culture in the organization. I would encourage these people to read things like our employability guide, read up on autism and readiness for it. And it might also help to create awareness via discussion and or formal training. So if you didn't catch that, that was a shameless plug for our employer guide. And communication, this is one of my favorite quotes. Biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's taken place. The illusion that it's taken place. So here we want to give clear instruction. That includes the big picture. Why am I doing this task? How does it contribute to a bigger objective? And maybe even going through a step-by-step procedure or step-by-step instructions. So again, the instruction should be very clear. One of the elements that we got back from an intern was they weren't sure how to ask questions in the organization. So establish who to ask questions of and how best to do that. Is it via email, a phone call? So establish how the intern should ask questions. Clarify support roles. If there's I would say a mentor in the team that this person's working on, define that role up front. Or if there's someone in HR, someone in the Employability Project. So define the support structure, make it clear. A structured schedule, I think, is helpful. So again, add structure to the schedule, start, stop times, maybe accommodating bus schedules. And then handling changes, big changes. It would be better if you could break them down into small incremental changes. So those are things about communication. And employer feedback, employers that we've worked with have said, I would give this person a wonderful recommendation. So that's a big advantage. In cases, we've had them hired on as staff. So a very large base of employers, and we've gotten great feedback. So that helps our program. Point out this win-win-win structure one more time. Good for the students, good for the employer, good for the community. And that's what we wanted to share about the Employability Project. What is it? Who are we? The flight plan, the process we use for getting the students ready for employment, and some information guiding employers. Before we get to the Q&A, I want to share this quote. J.K. Rowling is the person who wrote Harry Potter. We do not need magic to transform our world. We carry all of the power we need inside of ourselves already. So this bridging the gap, we don't need magic to solve that. We can all work together and actually make it happen. We have the power to do that. Again, shameless plug for our 2 books. And there's our contact information. And with that, I think we're ready for Q&A. Andy?
Wonderful. Thank you so much here. Let me go ahead and there we are. As we're waiting for people to get their questions in, Galen and BJ, I had a question for you both. You know, here at American Family Insurance, we're a community that is built of fellow fearless dreamers. We'll start with Galen first. What's one piece of advice you have for someone who's actively pursuing their dream?
I think the easiest piece of advice is you can actually do that. I'll use the quote I just used. You have the power to do this within you. And the Employability Project just helps.
Wonderful. And BJ, what's one piece of advice you have for someone who is actively pursuing their dream?
You know, I think one of the best things that anybody can do is talk to somebody that's already doing something similar, and ask questions. Because there might be things about it that, you know, you never thought about before that you could learn. And again, it could put you on the path of saying, oh, gee, that's really not for me. So I think it's really time well spent if you take the time up front to go talk to people who are doing what you think you want to do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. We've got some questions that have come in. First one from Elizabeth. Do you work directly with school districts? And if so, which ones?
We have worked with school districts before. We actually, our pilot program was with, I believe it was the Monona Grove. I can't remember what district number that is, but that was very, very interesting. That was high school students. And we had some really terrific things happen from that. We're open to working for school districts. I mean, virtually now we can work with lots of them. So we've expanded our capacity. We were working, you know, strictly in just the county surrounding Dane County before.
Awesome. Next question. Is this only eligible for young adults that are still in school?
I can answer that one too. No, actually, we've worked with various age groups. The setting was just right for us for this college program, but we've also, you know, worked with adults and all veterans as well. The principles are pretty much the same as far as, you know, how we go about connecting people in our network, as far as, you know, whether they want to do internships or find jobs.
Wonderful. Next question. Have you mentioned ways to prepare the current employers for welcoming one of the interns?
Yeah, I think that was really the purpose behind the guide. We've just very recently published that. So that is really a guidebook for the employer. And it talks about things like I've covered in the interview setting as an example.
You know, one of the things too that I'll stress, because that's transportation is an issue, has always been an issue with people with disabilities. And so, you know, employers don't always know that, you know, so it's a really good thing to talk with them up front about that when they're looking to hire, you know, neurodiverse or people with disabilities, because, you know, there has to be a path to that. Some of them drive, but a lot of them don't. So it's always good to address that up front, I think.
All right, next question. Does a UW-Madison student need a diagnosis to register within your program, or can they join without the PPD-NOS diagnosis?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that depends. We work with DBR, and people can go that route. We also, you know, work with schools. But if individuals were interested in coming, I mean, I think that would certainly be a good conversation to have, and we would be flexible as to how that might happen.
I think we'd be open to that. You know, we are a volunteer organization, so I think we do have to deal with our own capacity. But I think we try to be as open as possible.
Next question from Jill. I'm in Pennsylvania, and I don't think my teenager that has autism will go to college, but will stay in current school distraction district program until age 21. Is this a nationwide program?
No, actually, this is a group of interested employers and educators and government workers who kind of pooled everything together. We in our dreams, we really would like to replicate it, because we haven't found anything else like it anywhere. So we know Tammy Baldwin, and you know, it might be worth another conversation with her to see how we might be able to make that happen.
I think now with the popularity of Zoom, we can do remote mentoring. Our workbook is still, I think, a solid foundation, is a great program to follow. So I think the program plus virtual mentoring, I think, gives us possibilities to expand.
Thank you for that. Next question. What is your best of advice for parents of those who are autistic to support them in their careers?
Well, I don't know. I guess I would just again say, you know, support them in their dreams, and try to find all the resources that you can of people that can talk to them about what their dreams are. I think that's a good starting point, because, you know, remember Thomas and how he, you know, he just saw things differently and in such a fantastic way. And I think that everyone has that capacity if someone will have the conversation with them.
Galen, I don't know if you want to take a crack at that as well.
Yeah, I think the thing that BJ emphasized was that it should be geared to what the student wants to do, and try and reinforce that as best you can. And I think that's what we've tried to do. We've used these career surveys to try and make sure that it's aligned with the students' interests.
You know, one thing I will add also is that I always try to leave people with this thought. You know, it's always worth a phone call. If we don't have the capacity, we might know someone who does. And that's what I always like to tell people. You know, I don't personally know this, but I might know someone else who does that I can connect you with. I mean, the power of networks is amazing when it comes to, you know, finding services and finding people who are really happy to help someone on their career journey.
Right.
Next question from Sharon. Are there any charges or fees for the students?
Well, I guess that depends. We, as I said, we do work with DVR and we do work with Mansfield Hall. However, we also are starting a scholarship program. So I guess depending on the direction that someone wants to go, we could take a look. It's interesting because all of us are like business people, and we wanted to do this work because we thought it was important. And in fact, I first got my start working in this venue because I was asked many years ago what types of employees my company might need in the future. And so the college was thinking, we need to structure classes around that. And so as an employer, I'm looking at this whole population thinking, wow, this is my community, and look at all this untapped talent. And so that's kind of how I got involved in it. So I think that, this whole business of trying to figure out fee structures and all that sort of thing always was secondary to us. So I'd be willing to have a conversation about that if you want to connect with us.
Yeah, I think we are looking at this and the underemployment, unemployment problem as something that we think we can help solve. Maybe it's one student at a time, but that's our mission. Try and make that better.
And if there are any grant writers out there that want to join our group, we'd be happy to talk to you about that, because that's our next step, is we're looking for grants also to just sort of fill in that gap between the different services that we offer through government and private.
Thank you for that. Next question from Chris. How is this handled for nonverbal folks? Are PCAs available?
You know what? That may be out of our wheelhouse. I do have a subject matter expert that could probably address that, but she is the one that would know far more about that. So I would suggest, send that to us at our website, and then I can connect you with her.
All right, moving through these questions. Next one, do you work with employment counselors such as those assigned through DVR or outside agencies, or separately?
Well, I would say all of the above. We have, currently I'm working with, with DVR counselors at this point. I have done the counseling myself individually and with others. So yes, anybody that we think is knowledgeable, that has a good background in helping people with disabilities, we're willing to partner with to do that.
Speaking of partnering with organizations, this is more of a local question, but this one comes from Mary. Any connection with the employability business that is near the airport that helps persons with disabilities? Mary, I don't know if you know the name of that business or could clarify a little bit more, but I think it was more so just like a location and site sort of question as passing that business. But any
Yes.
insight there, BJ? Oh, go ahead, Mary. Sorry.
Oh, just to clarify, the name of the place is Employability, and it's near the Madison, Wisconsin airport, and they do work with the DVR. So I was just curious if that was a coincidence in name or.
Well, ours is the Employability Project, and I think I know that group. I think I've met some of the people there. I think they also work with housing, if I'm not mistaken. So that their expertise is slightly different than ours. And I think they're a pretty large group that's been around for a while, but ours is specifically, intern and employer focused.
Thank
I
you.
can't remember their whole, I think employability is not the entirety of their name, but now you've piqued my curiosity. I'm going to have to look that up.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next one from Joe. I missed some of the names of the organizations that provide assistance. Can you post a link to the org that we can follow up with later? So I missed the name of the organization that provides assistance.
Okay, I'm thinking DVR is probably what you're referring to, Joe. And that's just the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation is one of them. Mansfield Hall is a private group. And it's actually like a dorm where the students come, although they all attend different colleges. So I don't know, how would we do that? Just write it in the link?
Okay, so he said not DVR. I'm referring to the speakers org. So I think just
Oh,
the
the
employability.
employability project.
Employability project.
But yeah, you can type all pertinent links in the chat, and then all guests will be able to see that.
Okay. I'll try to do two things at once here.
Yeah. Speaking of links, this is a good segue as well too. This event is being recorded and will be premiered on our YouTube page about a week from today, so that you just go ahead and search youtube.com/DreamBank, or just pop DreamBank into the search, and you'll be able to find a good concise list of all of our previous events that have been recorded. And that's a great place to hang out if you're looking for any future events that you might want to go back and reference as well too. And I will go ahead and put a link in the chat for you folks as well for that. But while I'm doing it, next question came in from Wendy. I'm in British Columbia, Canada. Not sure if it was mentioned already. Is the Career Cluster Interest Survey available online for non-local students? My son, who is 17 years old, has been finding challenges to identify as to what he would like to do. He wants to try a job to make a decision whether or not he likes it. He clearly can't try them all, so at least narrowing down the options would be helpful.
Yeah, that would be a good tool, because what that basically does is tell you your top 3 areas of interest. So it kind of narrows it down in order to go forward. And that career cluster insight or survey may be on our website. If it isn't, I can put it on our website. I'll check that after this.
Yeah, I think if you do a search for career clusters interest survey, there are several organizations and educational organizations that have links to it.
Wonderful. Well, it looks like the last questions for now. How do you purchase, or how do I purchase your book? Excuse me, direct through you or Amazon? What is the best method for that?
Yeah, I would suggest go to Amazon and you can search for Soaring to New Heights. Soaring to New Heights, or search us, the Employability Project. We're the authors.
Wonderful. And I think I did some quick typing here. I was able to find it. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that link in the
Okay, great.
chat.
We have one book for students and one for employers.
Wonderful. All right. So that concludes all of the questions that have come in. So we will go ahead and wrap it there. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today and joining us here on this Monday morning. I want to thank Galen and BJ as well for taking time out of their day to present this wonderful and valuable material in honor of Autism Acceptance Month this April. Again, go ahead and check out our YouTube page for a recap of previous events that were recorded, and then our website, which is amfam.com/DreamBank, for all of our upcoming events as well. With that being said, we will go ahead and cap it there, and we will see you all next time. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.